Welcome to Jump Shots from the Goal Line. I am your host, Jonathan Dugan. I am joined, as always, by Mr. John Henningsen and Mr. Ben Crownover. Boys, it has been a wild week in sports, whether it's the NBA doing NBA things with firings, or it's NFL free agency imitating the NBA, or, the top six for the college football playoff just got released. Obviously, kind of like midway through the season. There's a lot to talk about today, boys. How we feeling?
Good. I'm ready to talk about all of it. It was a big week, man. Tuesday exploded, right? That was Tuesday.
Yes.
All of a sudden, like you kind of forget the NFL trade deadline like is a thing now, and then
Mm-hmm.
it just starts happening like randomly and crazy. And
Yeah.
I saw Chris Long out there calling for trades, and then it would feel like it would happen. He'd be like, "Do another one," and sure enough, bang, boom, and then right on top of it, the big Nets news.
Yeah. Let's start off there, Henny. Good segue. We haven't been talking about the NBA a whole lot lately. Obviously, right, we're at the beginning of the season. Storylines haven't really developed too much, but one of the biggest storylines so far has been the Nets, right? Whether it's Kyrie's anti-Semitism, or it's the fact that they can't win a game, or maybe it's the fact that Ben Simmons is still passing up open shots. But the biggest news of the week, obviously, right? Steve Nash. I think it was a mutual decision that he was going to leave the team. Obviously, the audience knows we're big Suns fans here, and Steve Nash is basically a god in my eyes. So just insane that it's gotten to this point, and he's kind of the scapegoat. Henny, I know you have some thoughts on it. What are you thinking, man?
Yeah, I just feel bad for him, but I mean, I'm also happy for him. Like he looked like he was aging rapidly, and I think we've all, seen the guy in the job who just doesn't like that job anymore, and you're like, man, just go.
Yeah.
So I am honestly really happy for him in a weird way. Like I feel like he's probably happy to get away from it. He's not like a real like. I know he's like a really competitive guy, and I'm sure he's like a relatively speaking strong personality, but I think he's like kind of a vibes guy too. And those are just
Mm-hmm.
not good vibes. So, kind of what we had talked, I kind of talked to you on the side about it was, I just feel bad because I think that was like a really good job. I mean, at the beginning of that whole thing, the whole fuss was like, does Steve Nash deserve this job? Like, did he jump the line? All these things when like, look, dude, the guy was a 2-time MVP in the league. Like, you can get that kind of job. I just feel bad that it was basically a good job for 1 year. They had bad injury luck, Harden pouts. They trade him for Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is awful. I mean, he
Oh
is
my
just like there's
God.
no like. I mean, not trying to just like dump on the guy, but like I mean, there is something going on mentally,
Yes.
physically, whatever. Like he is not. We can stop talking about him until something dramatically changes about him being like, well, what if he's playing the five for the Clippers? Do you like them? No, like none of this is good.
No, not at all, man. And going back to the Nash point, I think you're completely correct, right? Like, number one, I think his resume does speak for itself, the two-time MVP, but he was also a pretty, he wasn't a direct assistant on the Warriors, but he did a lot of the stuff kind of in the back, where, he was working with players development and stuff like that. And he was really, really thought highly of there. And that's part of the reason why Kevin Durant went to Brooklyn, right? I mean, obviously, besides being in New York, but he wanted to play for Steve Nash. He was sad to see him go. He literally said, I loved coming to work every day with Steve. And I think we can take a look at this, right? And he truly is, like I said, just kind of a scapegoat. That whole locker room is a complete and utter mess. Whether it's like we just said, Ben Simmons just failing at being a basketball player at this point, Kyrie just being typical Kyrie, like, man, it's bad. And you got to feel kind of bad for Kevin Durant, because he wanted to be traded all offseason. They refused to trade him, and now he's on a team with no head coach, playing with a couple of absolute team killers. And now the rumor is they're about to sign Ime Udoka, which, I mean, if you could pick a franchise to um, sign this guy after what the Celtics did, I mean, this would be the franchise to do it, right, Henny?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I hope so. I still though. I mean, I will say because I just have to backtrack. 'Cause, like, I kind of got lost in this thought. Like, as much as I do feel bad for Kevin Durant because he is in basketball hell, this is like the life that he chose. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, I think Bubba Sparks once said, Ryman chose me, and I feel like he Kevin. I don't know why that came to my head, by the way. So
Hold
whatever
on.
you're talking about,
Did you
yeah,
just
like
drop a
you were
Bubba
talking
Sparks
about stuff,
reference?
and I had all of a sudden had that like Bubba Sparks beat in my head, and I don't know what. I'm not really
Wow.
sure where I'm at, but I'm in a good place. But but yeah, dude. I mean, he like chose this life too, though. So it's like hard. Like I want him out of there just because it's like better for bad. Like I don't want to watch Kevin Durant and like at the twilight of his career in a poisonous situation. Like that's
Yeah.
not fun. And then the Ime Udoka thing, man, it's just the last grasp for that. Like they're willing to bring on more drama to try to salvage this thing.
Yeah, dude, they're already dealing with a
Yeah,
player
why?
who apparently doesn't like Jewish people. They're already dealing with a guy that couldn't play in Philly because he has mental health issues. And now we're going to bring on a guy who was literally let go after leading his team to the finals not 3 months before because he is super horny. They've hit the holy triumphant now, and you know, I don't even know what to say about the Nets anymore. But good lord, I think you said it best at the beginning, right? Like we feel bad for Steve Nash, but hey, my man's getting out of a bad situation, and now he can just go focus on soccer and yoga and TikTok videos. And maybe, now he can be like amicable with the Suns. And now that Robert Sarver's gone, come on home, buddy. Come on home.
Ben, any thoughts on anti-Semitism? No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. I'm just kidding. Just want to get you involved. I'm like, oh, poor Ben's just still hanging in there. But I will say about Kyrie, I'm not even sure. Like, I don't even think he knows what he's doing. And then he just like tweets stuff out and then he's just like too prideful to even say sorry. Like, I don't even know if these are his beliefs or like
Yeah.
he's just, which, is still obviously not a good thing that he's doing and all of that. Like, that goes without saying, I think. But I think he's just like too prideful to like walk it back and just be like, honestly, didn't even finish the whole thing. Not sure. Like this is like kind of LeBron reading the book kind of thing. I'm getting like similar vibes of where
he's on
like,
this. He's on the
yeah,
first page of every
yeah,
book for the
LeBron's
last
like, let me
15
give you my
years.
preferred book where it's like, all right, well, what's like one of your favorite verses from the Bible? He's like, I don't know, Jesus was cool, and like like he didn't really. I guess he passed the test, but
Yeah.
I don't know. What a weird situation. I just think it's so weird that they're grasping at these straws, and I think it's interesting to see if we find out anything more about Ime Udoka. Not that I even like need to know, but like if it was bad enough to be suspended for a year and one team, like why can he just go coach for another team? Like what? I don't understand what's happening here.
Yeah, I think we haven't ever seen anything like this before, right? Like I can't recall anything like this where it's like a guy literally is suspended and basically fired and all of a sudden another team wants him and they're like, "Yeah, here, go ahead." And especially like a division rival. Like it's odd, right?
I mean,
So
Ray Lewis
the
killed two people and he was still able to play. So,
oh wow, hey, I thought Ben fell asleep, but here we
well,
are.
I
Okay.
almost did with NBA talk, but
Well, we're not done yet, Buckaroo, so buckle up. We'll get you your hockey shit in a minute, all right?
it's
Anyway,
fine.
I do want to reference just a couple of things so far in the early season. Really quickly, the Lakers are absolutely terrible. They're not getting any better at all. The
Tiny
Suns are,
better,
I mean, yeah, wow, they won a game.
tiny
Congratulations.
better.
They did beat the Pelicans today, so there is that. I'll give them
Yeah,
that.
they're
But
hot now.
yeah, but there are a few really hot teams so far this year, right? The Suns are on fire. The Jazz are playing well. The Cavs have won 6 in a row. There's
Marketing,
some,
rise up.
yeah, dude. Marketing looks incredible. There's some really really good basketball being played
Giannis looks pissed.
overall.
That league 7-0, and he's just 34 points a game. He's at the free throw line constantly, and he's just running everybody over, and the league's cool with it. So, I mean, the
Yeah,
guy's awesome. Like, so yeah,
it's the finals all over again.
yeah, for sure. But yeah, Blazers too. A little shout out to the Blazers. They're sneaking up there. They've won some games, although I think
Yeah.
they've caught another L. But yeah, it's been an interesting start. Clippers suck. Warriors are struggling, but they'll be fine. Warriors are crying though. Dre and Clay continue to cry at the altar. Uh, can't take one lick of criticism. I think I do find it really hilarious with the Warriors because you like look at Steph, and I think people portray Steph as like he plays this finesse soft game. He's like the only one not crying. Everybody else like can't handle, like they have 4 championships and they can't handle any critique. Like, dude, just hold them rings up, Clay, just like you did at the Suns game. Like, it's okay that Barkley says you're no longer the best 2 guard in the league. Like,
Yeah.
that's just facts, dude.
Yeah, dude. The more I watch the Warriors, the more respect I have for Steph Curry because, like you're right, dude. He never complains. He goes out there, he does the damn thing. Even the year where Dre was hurt, Clay was hurt, he never complained. Even then, either he was like leading that team and everything. Like, and now you're seeing it, like exactly what you just said. Like Clay, like complains about everything, dude, and he's not playing well. Draymond, the only time he gets points is if he's wide open, but he's going to be complaining all the time. There's that meme going around now that Jordan Poole's like acting like an idiot on the court too. I know you said that they are going to be fine, and I'm sure they will be fine because of the Warriors and they have Steph Curry, but they're definitely not how they were last year. They're definitely not as cohesive. I think that punch heard around the world did have some lasting effects.
Yeah, we know the deal though. Like, you can't really judge this stuff till Christmas. So cool to see some other teams involved, but we gotta wait. We gotta wait. But I keep saying it. I'm just gonna keep trying to speak it into existence. Like you mentioned, KD to the Suns. It could happen. It could happen. It could happen.
I mean, yeah, it could. But at the same time, the Suns are playing incredible. They are being carried on the shoulders of our Australian giant, Jock Landale. Incredible addition. And Chris Paul has a 26-1 turnover ratio. So, assist to turnover ratio, I should say. But, Suns look like they're a wagon again. But I don't know about you, John. I think we have talked ad nauseum about the NBA. I'm worried about our friend Benjamin Crown over here, who is sporting a sick sales stash, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. We're not on video yet, but just envision a
cop. Just a cop.
Yeah. Basically, if you've watched the movie Super Troopers, you can envision Benjamin Crownover. So, Ben, I know you have a lot of thoughts on the NBA, but I want to save them. This is going to be a shorter episode for the people. Why don't we jump into college football? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, if I may get 2 seconds on NHL. Mr. Ice is
fair.
currently taking a hiatus. He started out the year 7-1 and then has gone 1-7 in his last 8. So he's at an even 50%. My balance is hurting because I ride with Mr. Ice on every single pick. But man, that was a brutal week for me. So
wait a minute, Ben. Could this be a sign that maybe we have a podcast curse? We mentioned Mr. Ice and now he's gone cold.
Well,
no pun
I started
intended.
talking about him like the moment like the season started, and like he did rip out 7-1 to just kind of get things going. So, I mean, I don't know. It's tough.
Is he wearing more shirts?
He did write on one of the Hanes T-shirts, "I need to be ripped," during the cold like streak that he had.
So he's still delivering the content. Follow Mr. Ice anyway. Screw it. Still sounds like he's gold.
Elio82 at Elio82. But yeah, he's taking a little hiatus. So I don't know, just because I've been pumping up that handicapper so much, I figured I owed it to people to explain that. And it also has just really impacted my gambling balance. So
yeah,
I was very upset.
You bet heavy on hockey.
Yeah, those are my biggest units that I will throw on sporting events. So that was not ideal. But
really quick, Ben. I know this is going to sound shocking to both of you, but I want you to give me just a quick bird's eye view of the NHL right now. Like, talk to me like I live under a rock. Who's killing it right now and who's sucking? I know the Coyotes suck. It's okay.
Bruins, Hurricanes, and Vegas are your 3 top teams. Okay. If you're looking for the ability to kind of get some like juiced lines, hockey has so many great things you can bet on. The bad thing is a lot of the sports books are really like not that good to bet hockey for. Okay. Honestly, like Barstool Sportsbook has really good hockey gambling. And then specifically, I would say FanDuel is actually kind of bad. DraftKings is one of the better ones, but I think Barstool Sportsbook has the best hockey like user interface. But if you're looking for like the cool thing that you can really do and to just juice some lines is like take Bruins regulation money line. It will drop the odds dramatically closer to like a minus 110. Even though like maybe they're a minus, 240 just straight up regulate or like straight up money line. But if you can do a kind of like a juiced regulation win instead of an overtime win, you can do pretty well on that. So definitely encourage that.
Nice. Okay, and then who's kind of bottom of the barrel so far?
Well, I'm not. This is me being like the sky is falling Penguins fans, but they started out.
You're a Steelers fan. You've gone off on that before, so we expect this. It's okay.
I know, but they started out 6-1. They just lost their 7th in a row tonight, and third consecutive game with a lead going into the third period that they blew. So
sounds like the Ravens of hockey.
I'm just going to say the Penguins are the worst team in the league because I'm very upset. Honestly, the Kraken are really interesting. Like, watch the Kraken. The Kraken are a ton of fun. They look way better than last year. I know the expansion teams after Vegas is like, well, we can't do that again. But the Kraken are really good. They just beat the Flames in a really great game, I think, on Monday. Just some good games going on right now. Watch as much as you can and bet regulation winners. It's awesome.
I love it. This has been your NHL minute from Ben Crownover. That is patented. Please don't try to steal it from us. All right, Ben. Let's jump into some college.
Yeah,
let's jump into college because it's getting spicy, right? I mean, the top 6 just got released.
Yeah,
Tennessee's number 1, bro. What are we thinking?
So, I feel like that's the biggest trap line in America. So the Tennessee Georgia game is the game this weekend. If you're not watching this game, I don't know what you're doing. This is probably this determines so much stuff for the rest of the year. But Tennessee is an 8-point underdog on the road against Georgia, as in theory the number 1 team in the country. Like I would pretty much guarantee that everybody and their mom is going to be on Tennessee +8 to cover or win and all that. And it's like, I get it. I know there's a ton of hype, but if we look at what Tennessee's really done so far this season, they beat an Alabama team who is good, but it's not the same Alabama team that we've seen in years past. Georgia is Alabama on steroids, and ever since that Mizzou scare, they have been dominant, absolutely dominant. So I'm doing the contrarian pick this week. I am taking Georgia -8 because it doesn't make sense to me that you could possibly put Tennessee at a +8 unless Vegas is trying to trick everybody, and they win when they do that crap. So I'm taking Georgia -8 because why the hell not? Like, that line seems too easy to not take. So I'm gonna fade myself in what I think I should do, and I'm hopping on Georgia. I don't want it to happen. I want Tennessee to win, but the gambler's brain says Georgia -8.
Okay. Well, I'm going to be in Georgia this weekend. My sister's she's doing her vow renewal. My brother-in-law and his buddies are massive dog fans. And I'm just letting them know right now. I know he listens to the pod. I'm going for Tennessee because this is too much fun to not root for Tennessee. I know, Ben, you're going strictly from a analytical standpoint, and I get what you're saying. Listen to Ben when it comes to the gambling. But man, Hendon Hooker is one of the most entertaining quarterbacks in the NCAA right now. That offense is electric. Cedric Tillman is the wide receiver, right? Is he the big one that's been scoring all the touchdowns?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The offense is great. Like,
it's so much fun.
But you watched Georgia last week, though. Brock Bowers, my God.
Yeah.
That dude's unbelievable. Honestly, it's just, I want Tennessee to win. I want to take Tennessee. If I didn't have money on the game, I'd be diehard on Tennessee. But it's just there's just no way to me that Vegas is that stupid, and I feel like they're baiting me into taking a line that they know something about. Because we always say NFL rigged, NBA rigged, whatever. Like, there is no logical reason with that offense that Tennessee should be an 8-point underdog. So it's like everybody and their mom's going to be on it. And every single time that there's a bet that's like that, it loses.
Yeah. Do you think that the committee is hedging a little bit, putting Tennessee at number one the weekend before they play Georgia, just maybe for ratings, to
Oh, you mean
justify maybe Alabama?
yeah,
They'll
to
get
have
back in the top four.
my nightmare scenario where it's Tennessee, Georgia, Clemson,
Alabama,
Alabama. I mean, it's very possible. Um,
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, Tennessee does have the best win in theory of the big three. I guess
yeah,
I'm counting Alabama in the big three, even though they're not in the big three on the rankings. Like
because they will be.
they do have the best win. So like they've looked really good, they've looked dominant, and they have the best win, and they have the Heisman. Maybe not the guy who's going to win it based off stats, but the
Right.
guy who's the most electric player in college football right now in Hendon Hooker. So
Yeah, he's incredible. And I know all the slander of him being 25 going into draft day. That guy looks like a legitimate, like he could be a franchise quarterback. He can move it with his legs. He's got a sick arm. I'm excited. This is a huge, huge test for Tennessee this weekend. That's definitely the number one game to watch. But what do we think about the rest of the top four, top six, Ben? I mean, Ohio State number two. Do you feel like that's justified?
I do. When we did our Big Ten preview, I talked about the issue that they've had under Ryan Day was that their defense kind of slipped while their offense got so much better. Their defense is absolutely legit. They just did the damn thing to Penn State. I don't want to dive into all my sadness about that, but like Ohio State has a great defense and a great offense. And if you look at some of the other teams on like that list, like to me, like Ohio State is probably the most complete team who, other than being down at, going into the 9th minute of the 4th quarter to Penn State, like they've looked the most dominant of any team and hasn't had to like struggle to put a team away. So I think Ohio State at 2 makes a ton of sense. Georgia at 3 makes sense with some of those like slip ups against Mizzou. Clemson, I think, is the only team, or I think they're the team with the most wins against currently top ranked 25 teams. So I like Clemson at 4 over Michigan. Michigan, I think at 5 is appropriate. And then who's 6?
That's going to be Alabama, which we've already
That's
kind of
Bama,
talked about,
yeah.
right? They only have the one loss to the number one team in the nation. But I was talking to Henny before you jumped on. TCU at 7, they're undefeated. They've beaten Oklahoma State. They've beaten Kansas State.
Yeah,
Kansas State is no slouch this year, right? And they beat Kansas when Kansas was good.
They're suffering from the fact that they're in the Big 12, which is deemed as, inferior
Lesser
competition to the Big 10 and the SEC. So
right.
That's really what that is. I mean, they went out. Like, I don't see how they don't make top 4. Right. But it's one of those things, like they're ranked at that spot because of specifically the perception of the Big 12 as a whole with competitiveness against the SEC and the Big 10.
Now, wouldn't you? I think it's fair to say, though, right? Like TCU has some bigger wins on the board than somebody like Michigan.
Yeah,
I think.
No, I agree, but it's one of those things that like I don't necessarily disagree with that at all. It's just that the perception of it isn't necessarily like if you look at their big wins, they're doing it in conference, and it's like, yeah, they should blow these guys out because the Big 12 isn't as big, fast, and strong as these other 2 conferences. So it's similar with like, it's funny because Clemson is kind of in at 4, and I do like that over Michigan, but I think that's more because like the ACC does have more ranked teams than it would kind of indicate when you're trying to watch the games on the ACC network and nobody actually has that on their cable package. So it's
you just don't respect that Michigan smackdown on Penn State.
No, I mean, I respect it. I don't know.
It was just like a layup. I'm sorry. It was right there. He just like teed it up, and I'm like,
I know it's fine.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Ben. That was a pre-planned joke. We game planned that one before you got on. So
we were laughing. Honestly, you actually you swerved and like cut it off twice, and I was like, I will get to this. Yeah.
I
That's
literally
okay.
texted Henny right now. I said, "Do it,
Yeah.
You guys are the
unleash the
worst.
cannons."
Yeah, sorry about that. But I
That's
think like
fine.
when you look at what the committee does, man, they really, I think it's pretty much in their history that they just tell you who they actually think is the best, and they're not like, yes, they'll like value it upon wins and this sort of thing, but there's a reason Alabama still sits there ahead of like TCU, for example, because they just are always going to value Alabama. Like that's just the way it is,
Yeah,
and I think they really, there's a little bit more eye test going on and what they believe will happen and the way the dominoes will fall. And this thing's fluid, man. It's going to change week to week, and obviously this weekend, Tennessee, Georgia alone is going to shake things up.
it's absolutely insane game, man. Well, Ben, let's get to your picks, bud.
Yeah.
I know you probably mentioned it. I know you probably had Georgia, Tennessee on there, but who else do you got?
The only other like it's not necessarily like a week that I was super excited about some of the games, but I'm looking at this slate. These are all winners. I know I say that every single week, but these are all winners.
Yeah, you
Um,
won 100% last week.
yeah, 50% with a push, which was kind of killer. I was on the right side of the Florida spread. I didn't get the line at the favorable line that it kicked at.
Hmm.
But Clemson minus 3.5 at Notre Dame. I don't know where that line came from, but Clemson minus 3.5. They should destroy Notre Dame. This is
Right.
what every single time Notre Dame gets in one of these big games, they get destroyed. Like
Yeah.
ride with Clemson on that one. Clemson minus 3.5. I don't have a ton else to say about that. Just Clemson looks way better than they have when the season
Notre
started.
Dame Notre Dame did beat the dog shit out of Syracuse last week, and I know Syracuse was
They
kind of
lost
your
their quarterback,
darling all season.
so they lost their
True.
quarterback, and like that's a really big part of this. Like all Cinderella stories come to an end at some point, and like Syracuse had no business being that good other than their quarterback. Their
Hmm.
quarterback goes down. That team is a shell of what it once was.
Yeah.
So, like, I get it. I know they did, but I didn't end up taking Syracuse in that game because I honestly was kind of a little worried about how they would match up against a team that recruits, big bodies and
Five
stuff like that.
stars.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So um, that Cinderella story ends, and I wouldn't read too much into that. Like they were ranked high at the time, but Clemson is a class above Notre Dame, who is not a
Yeah.
good team, but they are more talented than Syracuse was.
Sure.
So um, I don't really have it like I said, there's not a ton of really great games other than that. I think there's some really simple ones that like I'm looking at. I'm like, oh hell yeah, give me this one all day. Kentucky's in a pick'em against Mizzou. I don't really
Okay.
know. Like to me, like I think that's probably a bigger reflection of Kentucky's been up and down. Like Will Levis somehow still getting a lot of draft hype. Like he has all the right
So
measurables.
strange, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's all the measurables, but like Kentucky is a better team than Mizzou, and to get them in a pick 'em, I'm going to take Kentucky. Um,
Hmm.
Michigan is at Rutgers. Rutgers has absolutely no offense, and Michigan will destroy the ever living shit out of them. The line's at 26.5. I would bet you any money that gets up to 28 by the time that this thing kicks. So,
Hmm.
like, people are, I mean, you're under 4 touchdowns. If Michigan can do that to teams with offense and defense, they're going to absolutely wipe the floor with Rutgers. That would be a shocker to me if maybe they win by like 21 or whatever, but they're a really good team, really really good team. So Michigan
Right.
minus 26.5. My depraved pick of the week is off of their bye week, so I got Georgia Southern +4 home dogs against South Alabama. I still know nothing about either of these teams, but Clay Helton +4. Let's do it. Um,
Yeah.
I felt weird not having a depraved pick last week. And then I think three more. Washington State is a 4.5 point favorite at Stanford. Stanford is still bad. Take
So
Washington.
bad.
Yeah, take Washington State -4.5. On the road doesn't
Real,
matter. Go ahead.
really quick with Stanford, do you think this might be the end of the road for David Shaw?
I mean, it's tough because like I think where you see some of these dudes get pushed out, and like we lost Brian Harson, pour one out for him at Auburn. Like it's when you have these really, really vocal boosters who give a shit that you see these guys who have these horrible years kind of like get ousted. Like, yeah, I could see him getting let go at the end of the year. the AD might decide to go in a different direction, but I don't see him getting fired mid-season because like I don't think the boosters really care that much at Stanford. They care more about
Right.
like how many Rhodes scholars do they have than they do about
Mm-hmm.
if the
Yeah,
Cardinal, the
and I think he can
Stanford
just keep
Cardinal,
losing.
yeah. I mean,
Like, I think
he'll
you're right. I think he can just keep losing. It's fine. Unless like something changes where like the Pac-12 breaks up and suddenly they move. Like I feel like it'd be something like that has to happen for them to actually get rid of Shaw.
Well, I think it's fair to say, right? Like outside of Saban, Shaw is kind of like, I mean, he's kind of the elder statesman in terms of coaches being at the same school for as long as they have, right? I mean, he's been at Stanford for since Harbaugh left.
yeah.
So I don't know. It's definitely a weird situation. I know they're getting a lot of Big Ten talk. So potentially, I mean, that could go two ways, right? Like you either look at his stability going into a potential new conference, or maybe they want a fresh new image going into a new conference. Because I think that's definitely going to happen. I think Stanford, if Big Ten can get Notre Dame, then they're going to pull in Stanford for sure.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things like they're not really competitive anymore. It is kind of, I think this is just an acceptance of what they are. A school with really high academic standards that just doesn't have the appeal to a lot of these recruits in like the NIL era and stuff like that. So like you get rid of them. Like, is that a desirable job? Yeah, it's Power Five, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, and they do have a history of good football, though. You know what
They
I mean?
do,
So,
but
I
Rhodes
mean,
Scholars,
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know.
And I don't know how great of boosters they really have when it comes to athletics. I think most of their boosters are definitely academics. They are, a research facility. They're basically Ivy League. So, yeah, I get where you're going with it for sure. But yeah, go on. What's your next pick?
I just got two overs then to kind of bring it home. Iowa's at Purdue. I know Iowa overs are scary because Iowa's offense is really, really bad. Um, that being said, Iowa was able to drop 10 points on Ohio State. Um, and Purdue's defense is not that good. So to me, I'm taking over 41 in this because Purdue has a good enough offense that this is going to be a nail biter. I promise you that. This is like a Purdue offense good enough to score and defense bad enough to maybe let Iowa do something. Because it's not or it's not at Iowa. I'm more comfortable with the over than I would be if it was a home game for the Hawkeyes. But Iowa over 41, that's going to be really. I mean, I hate watching Iowa. I talk about it all the time, but that offense is so bad. Purdue's defense bad enough that I do think this is one of those rare Iowa overs that hits. And then the Penn State Indiana over, it's at 50. I'm not touching the spread. Penn State historically kind of gets beat by Ohio State twice in a row. So, they every time they have like this really emotionally like big letdown, they like play like dog shit the next week from the standpoint of like they, play down to the competition, whatever it might be. That spreads at 14. And like, yeah, in theory, they should cover that against the bad Indiana, but I don't feel comfortable taking that. I do feel okay though about the over just because this is going to go either two ways. Indiana stays in it, and you're looking at like a I don't know 31-24 game, or it's Penn State blows them out like they should. Now, really interesting. I know I talk about Penn State every single week, but this is a very critical juncture for Penn State because they are either going to say, hey, Sean Clifford, thanks for all you did, you stupid, mediocre idiot. Get out of here. Enjoy the last 4 weeks of being an inept average college quarterback. And they'll bring
We're at
in,
that point of the season, huh? Okay.
well, the team is talented enough that they still should be able to win the next 4 games, whether Aller is playing or Clifford is playing. So why would you keep a 6-year quarterback in there who doesn't do anything other than pretty much give you a little bit more confidence that you go 10-2? But what does a 10-2 record mean anymore when half of the players are going to sit out for the bowl game? Like, I don't care about them getting to a New Year's Six Bowl. I care about getting the guy developed for the next year. And you already burned the 5-star quarterback's red shirt. Put him in. Like, if Franklin does not put him in, I would pretty much guarantee he never gets another 5-star quarterback in his coaching tenure at Penn State. Like, it's very, very important that they do not play Clifford for more than one of these games as starting quarterback. This needs to be the passing of the torch. So it'll be interesting.
How are we feeling about James Franklin? Because obviously he's a good recruiter.
Yeah.
Perpetual, like you just said, right? Like 10-2, 9-3. But his record against like top teams is so poor. Like, you as a Penn State fan,
yeah,
where are you sitting at?
It's kind of funny. I understand that there's some things that he does really well, and there's some things that he does really poorly. And like, those things that he does really poorly seem to be, can he honestly get these guys to be ready for the big games? Now, I know that he has a bad record against Ohio State, and I know that he kind of has split with Michigan prior to the last 2 years. Like, if the barometer for if a coach is going to be successful or not is, can you beat Ohio State? It's a really tough, measuring stick, and being like, hey, like, he doesn't beat Ohio State, let's get rid of him. Like, they actually did a few things really well last week against Ohio State. For the first time in, I feel like, 4 years watching this stupid team with Sean Clifford at the helm, there was offensive creativity. They were doing, T formation. They were doing like design bootleg passes. They were doing a lot of really good things on the offensive schemes. And the reason they lost that game wasn't because, and Joey Porter Jr., I think, actually said this. He's like, it might not have been Joey Porter Jr., it might have been one of the other guys, but he was like, we didn't lose because they had more star players. We didn't lose because of the game plan. We lost because of turnovers. And who had 4 turnovers last week? Sean Clifford. So to me, like, I think Franklin's done enough to build a program to the point that it's at, that I think if you get the right quarterback in there and you develop him so that he doesn't have a development year next year, like, you've only let this 5-star quarterback throw 28 passes. Like, get him in the games and have him throw real time, not against second teamers, and have him see what he's worth. Like, and Franklin will be judged off of this decision more harshly than his record against Ohio State by the fan base, in my opinion.
Right on. Okay. Is that all your picks for this week?
It's all of them.
You didn't hit on a couple games that I just want to get your opinion on. And Henny, you can jump in here too. The first one I want to ask about is Bama LSU, because it's a
that
top 10
spread
matchup.
Scared me. That spread
the 13
did scare
and a
me.
half.
Yeah, because again, Bama hasn't really blown anybody out, at least in my opinion. And it's in Death Valley. It's a lot of points. LSU has looked a lot better than they did at the start of the season. It was a lot of, to me, that spread is 13 and a half, 14. Like, I'm just not going to touch that one. It's a good game. I do think Alabama wins. I don't know if they cover, and because I'm not confident, I'm not touching the spread.
Fair enough. Henny, do you have any thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I just think it's an interesting game. I mean, LSU's obviously been improved. This is what Brian Kelly wanted, right? And he's definitely seen Nick Saban before. I don't think it's gone well for him in the past. But this will be the first test. I'm just curious to see what it looks like with LSU athletes, Brian Kelly schemes versus Saban, just to even see if he can be competitive. So I'm just curious from that standpoint, like, can LSU hang? They're at home. The quarterback's actually playing well. He's not turning the ball over. I know we haven't really talked great about him, but he's taking care of the ball, using his feet, and they've been good. And they're kind of creeping in that top 10 talk.
Right on. Yeah. And then the other game I wanted to bring up would just be that Texas at Kansas State game. Obviously, Texas isn't where they want to be, but they still are Texas. They still have those 5-star athletes. They have Bijan, they have Quinn. Going up against a scrappy Kansas State team that has really played well this year outside of the Tulane game and the TCU game. What are your thoughts on that one, Ben?
I love watching K-State's games. I don't honestly, like, it's a coin toss in my mind. Like, I don't know which version of Quinn Ewers you're going to get. The one that threw more passes with like the least amount of completions than like anybody in Texas history, or you're going to get the guy who put Alabama on edge like in the first half in like what, week 2. Um, I I would like to think that K-State can pull it off because I love watching blue blood programs just like struggle. But again, I've watched Adrian Martinez for like what, 4 years at Nebraska, and he always was somebody who has like, this guy will blow a big game. He hasn't done it yet for K-State. He could.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's like I just don't know, like really confidently on which way this would go. It's a great matchup. Hopefully, it's a good game. Like, you don't get the Quinn Ewers who can't complete more than like 30% of his passes, but Adrian Martinez was always the guy that ruined it for Scott Frost and ruined the games, and he's completely revitalized his career. I just don't, I don't feel comfortable putting money on that one, but I do think Texas probably wins. I don't take money line favorites, and is it, they favorites or no?
Yeah, they are by 2.5.
I don't. Oh man, 2.5 is kind of nice. Maybe I'll throw something on that. I don't know. I just don't take money line favorites because it never really pans out.
I think it comes down to, right, with Kansas State, if they can get Deuce Vaughn really going early on,
he's amazing.
It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough sledding for Texas. Yeah, he's arguably the best running back in the nation, right? We're big Bijan guys, me and Henny, but Deuce Vaughn has been that dude all year, and he is kind of the engine that keeps the whole offense going, right? Because with Martinez's legs, and then Deuce Vaughn just being a prolific runner, it just comes down to Texas's D line and their linebackers. So I agree, man. It's going to be a fun as hell game, and that line is pretty juicy. So yeah, maybe you just throw a little bit of money on that, just standalone, right? So, Henny, you got any thoughts on this one?
No, just that Bijan's probably the best player to ever come out of Tucson, and Trenton Bourguet did win his start for Arizona State. So Tucson players balling out there. Yeah, so I love to see that, man. It's love to see kids that either we coached against at some point or saw coming up in some 7-on-7 or whatever, have an impact like in the SEC and the Big 12 and the Pac 12. I mean, there's kids I could name drop for a while, but
a lot of Ransom, bro.
He's exactly. For Ohio State. Exactly. So there's some big time kids making big time plays across the country out of the Tucson area. So that's just a cool follow locally.
Jordan Morgan, you coached him. He could be potentially a 2nd or 3rd round pick in the NFL draft. I don't know how, but that's the smoke out there. So
we believe, Jordan.
Yeah, we believe. Coach Henny believes. So cool, guys. Well, hey, like you said, Ben, there are some pretty sweet matchups. It's not as juicy as it's been in prior weeks, but there are some definitely interesting storylines to follow this weekend. Go ahead and follow the Twitter this weekend. We'll try to pump out some of those picks that Ben dropped on the episode. And you can follow along and let us know how you did. Let's move on to the other side of football, right? So it was the big boys week. Henny mentioned it earlier in the episode. Trade deadline was on Tuesday, right? And we've been going kind of over it for what seems like a couple weeks now. They're all technically trade deadline deals, but let's start out with the big one, boys. Christian McCaffrey goes to the 49ers from the Panthers. He has an incredible game this week, throwing a touchdown, running for one, and receiving one. That was a gamble because of his health, but man, what an incredible fit, right?
Yeah, and they already feel so good about it. They moved Wilson. So, I mean, they already shipped out another running back. But I don't know. We talked about this last week. I mean, obviously it was a great showing last week, but I still have all the same concerns about the 49ers I always have, and it still starts and ends with Jimmy G. Obviously, the defense is getting healthy, and that can be a really dominant unit, so that's a little bit scary. The run game obviously can be more deadly with Christian, assuming he stays healthy, but like It's the same question. So like that's the problem. Like running back health, general health, Jimmy G, but they have moved up to where they're like Super Bowl odds have moved up incredibly. So
Yeah.
people are loving it. I like them to win the division.
Yeah. I mean, well, hey, if Gino has anything to say about that, we'll see. But yeah, definitely an interesting trade. That whole offense is predicated on the run. You obviously, when healthy, have one of the best running backs, most prolific running backs, and dynamic running backs in the league. So it'll be interesting to see if he can stay healthy, and if he does, I agree with you, Henny. The Super Bowl odds should just continue to rise week over week. Let's go to the next big trade. The Bears kind of did a fire sale, right? Moved Robert Quinn to the Eagles. The Eagles continue to load up. That team is looking just completely scary. Still haven't lost a game. Now they're adding a guy that had 18 and a half sacks just last year, set a franchise record for the Bears. And now you put him on that D line that was already really, really one of the best in the league. And then the Bears also went ahead and traded their best player overall in the team, Roquan Smith, to the Ravens. You guys know I'm pumped about that. The guy already has like 78 tackles or something on the season, and we're at the halfway point. He's absolutely feasting. Now you add him to a defense that was struggling to maintain leads going into the fourth quarter, but they have the talent all there with, Calais Campbell, Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey. You put him next to Patrick Queen. That should be a match made in heaven. I think it's fair to say that's probably the best linebacker that the Ravens have had since Ray Lewis, and he doesn't even kill anybody, which I'm just getting ahead of that before Ben does. What do you guys think of those couple moves?
Well, if he kills two people, I think he's going to be fitting right into that culture over there.
Yeah, then put him on the cover of Madden and start picking out your rings.
Great. I'm glad that your analysis, both of you, was just top notch. Perfect.
Hey, it's a nice move.
Guy.
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say, I'm like, you're the Ravens guy, and then like you were firing Harbaugh a week ago, and now you're like, well, probably the best move and it's you could possibly make, and we're good. And now your schedule starts to look better, and so
Yeah.
the skies are looking blue, buddy. Cheer up.
Listen here, we're all emotional sports fans, right? Like Ben hates the Steelers every single week. You were ready to jump off a cliff for the Chargers not even a couple weeks ago. I'm the same way.
Before the
all right?
season, I was ready, dude. I was ready before the season.
I'm the same way, not to be douchey, but the Ravens just historically have been very, very good every single year. And now, we face a little adversity. They did beat the Buccaneers last week. It was a great win. And now they add arguably the best linebacker in the NFL. So I think it was a great move if they can extend him. He does have, he's on the last year of his contract. He obviously wanted $20 million plus from the Bears. The Ravens have Lamar Jackson that is also up for a contract. So it's going to be interesting to see how they juggle that and do the gymnastics built around that whole thing. But at the end of the day, I like the trade for sure. The next kind of big trade happened interdivision. We have TJ Hawkinson going from the Lions to the Vikings. Irv Smith went down with an injury that's going to keep him out for a while. They swing for the fences, get TJ Hawkinson, who's always a top 10, top 15 tight end in the league. The Vikings are 6-1. The only loss they have was to the Eagles. That is looking like they see blood in the water with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers not doing well, and they're going for the division crown. You guys have any thoughts on that one?
I like the move. I like it. I like to see the Vikings being aggressive. It's weird to see like that interdivision trade. Like that's weird to see
Always
Hawkinson
weird.
2 times. Yeah, like it's just weird, right? I don't like so it's just kind of a weird move, but I like it. I mean, Irv Smith was not really giving any production anyways. I know he did get banged up, but like there was really nothing coming out of that position for them. And it's just another weapon for Cousins. And I think, the Vikings begin to mount that like, man, this feels good. And how does it end badly in the playoffs?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. That team's looking dangerous though, right? Because with Justin Jefferson, Thielen, Dalvin Cook, and now you add Hawkinson that can eat up those catches in the middle there. I think we're at the point. I think we've been at this point, but definitely more so now. Kirk Cousins has no excuse. if they fail once again, I think it's firmly on his shoulders. They fired Zimmer last year. They do look a lot better this year. Now he has all these different weapons. Let's see if he is who he says he is going forward. The next trade I do want to go over, we're going to swing back on the Bears really quick. This is one that, Ben, you can speak to a little bit. TikTok season is over in Pittsburgh. Chase Claypool is now a Chicago Bear. What are your thoughts on that, Ben?
Chase Claypool's first 10 games with Steelers, you know how many touchdowns he scored? 10.
How many?
You know how many scored in the next 29? 4.
Wow.
Like, I think it was highway robbery getting a second rounder out of it. I'm not excited about losing in theory, weapon for a young quarterback. Basically, the thing that the Bears were seeking, the Steelers just gave away, and they don't necessarily have a shitload of dudes that can, once you lose one of those guys, it's like, well, shit, what do we do? This season's lost, though, so go out and draft another one. That's not an idiot who fumbles away games and burns the clock by motioning for a first down celebration. Get out of here, Claypool. From the standpoint of a culture fit. And I think hopefully it wakes those people up a little bit. Hey, you don't do your job, you're gone. I still think the season's complete waste. It's kind of funny because the Bears were sellers at the trade deadline and they were also buyers. I think that was a future focused move by them to try to get a receiver that hopefully can do something to just get more things going for Justin Fields. That he has looked better the last couple of weeks. It's just a complicated, strange dynamic that the Steelers would be willing to take a weapon away from their younger quarterback to give it to the Bears, who were so desperately needing more weapons for their young quarterback. It was bizarre. It was a little bit backwards. I wish we had traded him before he did the stupid first down celebration and cost us a game, but it is what it is. See ya. Good riddance.
Yeah, and you guys already kind of replaced him this past season, right, with George Pickens, which this freeze.
My concern actually with Pickens is that, and I was looking at some, I was doing a deep dive on the stats, if you will, and Pickens is one of the worst receivers in the NFL as starting receiver at getting open, but he catches everything that he shouldn't catch. So it's I would love for because everybody's yo, why don't they throw to Pickens more? He's so good. Look at how all these balls that he catches. He's not getting open.
It's Mike Williams disease. Yeah, it's a Mike Williams problem. And with the Chargers, everybody's isn't he great? I'm well, he's never open. He makes incredible catches because that's his only choice.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm not feeling great about the move for what it does for the Steelers. Obviously, I think they have a lot of issues. But to me, I'm if you got all these issues, the draft capital is great. Get as many offensive linemen as you can, but now we need to go find another receiver or sign one in free agency. So
and a quarterback.
Don't get me started, bro. Small hands Kenny is not the truth in my opinion, but whatever.
Yeah, I think that trade's just like a quarterback confidence trade. Field stock going up. Kenny Pickett, we're not so sure. I don't really think we need to keep more weapons around you. So I don't know. It's that's kind of what it speaks to me. If anything's telling about it, it's where both franchises feel about their quarterback.
Yep, I agree, man. Well, that wasn't the only move that the Steelers made, though. They did trade for William Jackson III from the Commanders, former Bengal. I think he's a good corner. I think he was just in the wrong system. Should do well for the Steelers. Was kind of a weird trade, though, because like you said, Ben, you guys aren't doing anything this year. You're 2-6. It was only for a conditional 6th-round pick, so not a whole lot to lose there. But I agree with you, Ben. If you're going to make a move, go get an offensive lineman. Go get something that's going to help Kenny. I don't think the defense is necessarily the biggest issue. It's not great, but
I don't know. You see AJ Brown beat him with the same route 3 times?
Sure did. He's on my fantasy team. I was ecstatic. So, yeah. Let's move on to the next move. We have Bradley Chubb going from the Broncos to the Dolphins. The Dolphins are absolutely loading up. They traded away that San Francisco first-round pick that they received in the trade for Trey Lance. That is a dangerous team out there, man, because if they can try to keep Tua up and, healthy, they have the weapons on offense to score, and now their defense is looking nastier and nastier. I love this trade, and really all they gave up was that first rounder, Chase Edmonds, who wasn't getting a lot of run anyway, and a fourth rounder. So it's kind of a similar situation to the Roquan trade. If they can get this guy locked up long term, it looks a hell of a lot better. And kind of a weird thing for the Broncos to do, but I guess they probably see the writing on the wall that they might have made a mistake trading for Russ, and they kind of need to reload up on that draft capital. Henny, this is kind of your division. Did you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I'm not a huge Chubb guy. I really don't think he moves the needle in the way that this trade would indicate. I think most Broncos fans would kind of tell you the same. Is a hard time staying healthy, and they're very deep at that position. They've had some success from their young guys at the end as well, so that became expendable for them. They were trying to get like 2 firsts out of it. Didn't quite get there, but they still got some pieces. And I mean, I think it's a nice move for the Dolphins. I mean, the Dolphins still did get better. I just don't know if it moves the needle the way the trade capital would indicate.
Sure.
But, and then they replace Edmonds with Wilson, so they kind of swap-a-roo there. Probably think they're going to get the same production there. I mean, it's plus for the Dolphins, but I don't totally get it. What's cool about that, though, is that all the capital they ended up getting out of the Trey Lance deal is impressive, right? Because Jalen Waddle was a part of that. Now Chubb is part of that, and Tyreek Hill was a part of that. So I just think it's really cool how quickly the Dolphins have turned it around. So that's just like, so if you're feeling bad, Steelers fans, Chargers fans any week now, it could be turned around. It's all very possible if your GM is competent.
It's absolutely insane. Really quick, Ben, what they have turned that Laramie Tunsil trade into. I mean, they've literally turned it into Bradley Chubb, Waddle, and our boy Tyreek. Thank you. Like, you'd want to talk about team building. That is an incredible example of how to know that you're not going anywhere, get value out of it, and then turning that value into tangible things and not relying solely on the draft. So I think, a little bit of kudos can go to the Dolphins' way for sure. Ben, did you have a point to make?
No, I was just going to say, I mean, the fact that the Broncos are, just trying to get draft picks is to me, like, they're looking at what they did with Russell Wilson going, oh shit.
Right. That's what I was saying.
We have to try to salvage the situation. It's crazy. Like, I mean, who knows? Maybe it changes. I don't think so. Like, I'm not trying to like just take a dump on Wilson every single week, but like, that could be one of the worst like contracts that could just kill the Broncos for years and years and years and years and years. And it looks like it's going to, and maybe they're trying to fix it now. And it's just crazy.
Yeah. And he's not getting any better. I know he won this weekend and was ecstatic to drop a Broncos Let's Ride or whatever the hell he says. But it's not like he looked good. They still didn't score a lot of points. I think they're still only averaging like 16 points a game. I think you're right, Ben. I think that is going to hinder that franchise for a while. And you're going to see a lot more moves like this. I'm surprised they didn't trade Jerry Jeudy because I saw that was a big rumor. Jeudy does have like the most drops in the league, but the talent is still there, and they probably could have got at least some draft picks out of him. But I think to a sense, they're probably still trying to hold on some level of weapons for Russell just to see if he can pull it together. But I don't think he's going to. The last trade I did want to go through is one that's going to be near and dear to this podcast because we give gambling advice on this podcast. And Calvin Ridley going to the Jaguars, really weird trade where like there's so many conditions to it, depending.
It's the fine print when you're like, going through your Apple user agreement, dude. It was crazy.
Yes. Yeah, it was insane. And what's even more insane is the fact that he's going to Jacksonville because that is the team that he bet the Falcons would beat and what got him suspended for, they say indefinitely, but for a year. I just think that is hilarious serendipity. I think it's a smart move on the Jaguars' part. They're not going to compete this year. I think that much has been shown. I think it's pretty much the Titans' division to lose because the Colts aren't going anywhere. The Texans aren't going to do anything. But for next year, you're giving a guy like Trevor Lawrence a definite weapon. Calvin Ridley, when he's eligible, is an incredible receiver. And now he's going to be kind of the main guy for Trevor Lawrence. I know, Henny, you're a big Trevor Lawrence guy. Did you have any thoughts on this one?
I'm still so confused about Trevor Lawrence, but no, I just like the move in general. Like they are starting to pile up weapons, and I think what they're lining it up to find out is what is the deal with Trevor, right? It's again where a thing where they must have enough confidence in him. They want to continue to put weapons around him. And I do think he lacks some weapons there. So I just like I think it's a great move. I mean, I think they really got him for a steal and for a franchise that really isn't in it to win it this year. Probably like why not bet on the future and make that move? So I thought it was, even though it's obviously very weird, and the Calvin Ridley story is just funny. Like I do like the move for Jacksonville.
Yeah, they have him for his 5th-year option, right? So it's not as much of a gamble, no pun intended again, Jesus, that it seems to be, right? It's kind of a prove it year for Calvin, comes out after being out a year. And if he blows it up with Trevor Lawrence and Trevor Lawrence has a good year, looks good for the whole franchise. So it's really not a risky move for them. I thought it was very, very creative on their part, especially like how Ben said, they put enough clauses in there that it looks like a CVS receipt. But hey, you know what? Good move on them. And that was kind of the trade deadline, boys. Henny and I talked about it in the offseason that the NFL really is kind of emulating how the NBA works, where you see so much player movement as opposed to, even 5-10 years ago.
The disrespect, the NHL trade deadline is the best trade deadline out there.
Yeah, for all 30 people that pay attention to it. I know, dude, for sure. I'm just kidding. I just don't know a whole lot about the NHL trade deadline, but I do know this, the NBA trade deadline in the offseason, it's frequent flyer miles are being earned completely. And it seems like the NFL is doing the same, right? I mean, God, what a whirlwind this trade deadline was. And it really did shake up a lot of the seats of power going forward, and you can kind of see where teams see themselves the rest of the year. It's gonna be a fun second half of the season for the NFL, boys. So buckle up. Let's see what happens. Maybe the Chargers can get it going. Keenan Allen seems like he got his whole hamstring severed. Maybe he'll eventually come back and John can be happy again. And Ben, I know that you don't give a shit about the NFL right now because the Steelers are terrible. But
I'm golfing on
boys,
this weekend. That's the sign I've given up, is that I'm golfing on a football weekend.
Oof, tough. I would never golf on a Sunday. Henny, I'm sure that you've golfed on a few Sundays, but
yeah, man, you hook up the speaker, you play the red zone in the background, you still get the you hear what's going on, you can kind of keep the information flowing, check the fantasy team. I mean, it's all good.
Yeah. Good advice. That's good. That's good guy talk right there. I like it. Well, boys, hey, it was a wild week. We went over a lot of stuff. We got an NBA talk. We got an NHL talk. We got the NCAA stuff. We got the NFL trade deadline. The only thing we didn't talk about was the World Series, and I'm completely fine with omitting that. Boys, do you have any parting words for our audience? I know this was a shorter one, but I think we got a lot of good info in.
I'm good.
No, you mentioned the World Series. I was going to say, I think we're all tied up 2-2 now, right? I will say, like, I'm not interested in it at all, but like the highlights, right? Like of the Philly fans going nuts is awesome. And like it makes you like want, like, postseason baseball is great, but it's just such a regional sport. And I could just it's Bryce Harper and some guys, and then whoever's on the Astros, a bunch of cheaters, I guess.
I'm at the point where I'm more interested, and Ben, you're probably kind of where I'm at, where Mattress Mac or whatever his name is in Houston, where he has that massive, incredible, huge bet of the Astros winning, and he's absolutely losing his shit every single game. That's what I'm paying attention to. I want to see Mattress Mac either lose his shit when they lose, or I want to see him just make all the money. So that's really the only investment I have in the World Series this year, because I'm with you, Henny. I could care less about Bryce Harper hitting dingers. I could care less about a bunch of cheaters in Houston. Sorry, Chris Gordy. And by the way, Chris, if you're listening, you're probably not, but do not slander Philly like cheesesteaks. come on, we're better than that. Philly's food is far superior to Houston's any day of the week. So other than that, boys, I know, spicy take, but it's
the
true.
Cajun? Oh, wow. Oof. All right.
Dude, you're talking to a guy that's had Viet Cajun in Houston, and it's delicious. But that's all. I mean, I guess they have some level of barbecue, but all the good barbecues in Austin, Ben can tell you that.
Yep.
Outside of that, boys, I think we're good to go. I will be in Georgia this weekend watching the Tennessee game. That's going to be fun. I'm sure you boys have some golf plans. So with that, guys, just remember, please do us a favor, like, subscribe, share this podcast with all your friends, all your family, and follow us on social. Hey, we like to have a good time on there. Henny is awesome behind the keyboard on Twitter. So follow us there, Jump Shots Pod on TikTok. The clips will be posted there as well. I might be bringing some different content on there as well. And then we have a Facebook and an Instagram as well. So please give us a follow. And with that, I hope everybody has an incredible week. Stay safe and enjoy all the amazing sports that are going on. We'll see you later.
Hit them straight.